Hello and welcome to the English edition of the Ora News broadcast. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, weekdays at 6 p.m. In today's news, the Minister for Relations with Parliament has officially resigned from his post. The Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama, has announced the resignation of the Minister for Relations with Parliament, Ilirian Celibashi, and his replacement with Ermonela Felaj. Ermonela Felaj will be the new Minister of Relations with Parliament, Rama said. I hope Celibashi's decision to leave this post is the right one. With the hope that Celibashi will remain part of our political family, we will never stop seeking his help, said the Prime Minister. The new minister, Felaj, after thanking the Prime Minister for putting his faith in her, said that her work will speak for her in the days to come. I'd like to thank Prime Minister Edi Rama, and I promise that I will be fully committed to my duty. I'm glad that I will be able to benefit from Ilirian's experience. I believe that my work will speak for me in the days to come. The former minister, Celibashi, who has also served as the chairman of the Central Election Commission, declared that the decision was entirely personal and that he continues to believe in the values of the Socialist Party. This is an entirely personal decision, he said. The 300 days that I spent in this post were impressive. The reasons for my resignation are entirely personal. I hope that this act does not damage anyone. I believe that this was the most suitable moment. It was an honor and a privilege to be part of this governing cabinet. My decision does not shake my faith in Rama as Prime Minister or in this government cabinet. I'd like to thank the Parliament of Albania and all its MPs, regardless of their camp, for their collaboration, said Ilirian Celibashi. The new territorial reform that passed in Parliament yesterday continues to cause ripple effects in Albanian politics. The Prime Minister Edi Rama said today that he will feel sorry if the objections of the head of the UHRP regarding the new territorial division become the cause for his departure from the ruling coalition. In a press conference from the headquarters of the Prime Minister, the Chief Minister emphasized that with yesterday's reform, Albania guarantees in a generous and far-sighted way a special treatment for minorities. He said, Vangel Dule was a friend of mine, and he will still be a friend of mine, regardless of which coalition he will be in. I would feel sorry if this reform, about which every Albanian citizen and the Albanian citizens of Greek origin should feel good, would be a cause for him to leave the coalition. We are in a coalition, but we are not in a barracks. In this case, we have different views. For us, Himara is like Tirana, Durrës, Korça, Trapoja, and all other municipalities of Albania. With the reform of yesterday, Albania gives an excellent example to all neighbors, and obviously as a European country in Europe, because it guarantees a special treatment for minorities in a generous and far-sighted way. There are 61 municipalities that now make up the local government in Albania. But in fact, there have only been 58 municipalities created on the basis of the criteria of the functional area, and 3 municipalities, Finiqi, Tropulli, and Pustetsi, were raised by our consciousness to respect the freedom and the rights of other ethnic Albanian citizens, said the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Rama stressed that the territorial reform was passed without the Democratic Party, but not without the opposition. Expressing his thanks to the PJIU, the chief of the government said, "The Democratic Party does not hold a monopoly on the opposition. Yesterday, representatives of the second largest opposition party joined the debate and the voting session, and I thank them for the constructive approach to a process in which I have full sympathy for the Democratic Party." When asked if the majority will act on the justice reform, just as they did with the territorial reform, if the opposition does not become a part of it, the Prime Minister said that waiting has a limit. "We will not attain any objective by waiting," he said. We will do everything we can to listen, but we will lead, said Rama. Regarding the objections of some members within the ruling party over the territorial reform, the Prime Minister said that there were no negotiations with any of them to vote for the draft, but as he said, each one of them did his duty. Yesterday, the Parliament voted on the new administrative territorial reform, passing it with 88 votes in favor. The vote on the new administrative and territorial division of the Republic of Albania was preceded by a heated debate between the political parties. The opposition was absent from the vote because since the beginning they objected to this reform, claiming that no consensus was being offered by the left wing. The passing of the new division required 84 votes out of a total number of 140 that are in the Parliament. The majority managed to secure 88 votes, thus confirming its numbers in the Parliament. But there were strong objections to this reform, especially by the Unity for Human Rights Party. Its leader, Vangel Dule, who is the Vice Speaker of Parliament, warned that his party will leave the coalition if the reform passes without taking their complaints into account. The MB Vangel Dule considers the new administrative division to be illegal. He declared that it seriously threatens the human rights of minorities. This threatens the European laws and European practices, he said, but this act becomes even more serious when it's not proposed by a single MP, but by the Council of Ministers, with Edi Rama initiating. The commune of Vranisht, which is connected only through a helicopter line, is attached to the current municipality of Himara. The areas where minorities live were detached from the areas where the Greek language is spoken. The ethnic Greek minority in Delvina and Saranda were detached from villages and neighborhoods to satisfy political appetites, said Mr. Dule. The Vice Speaker of Parliament has demanded that the issue of Himara be solved through a referendum. Otherwise, this reform will fail, the same as the census, said he. This demand triggered debates in Parliament, debates that Prime Minister Edi Rama took part in. Addressing Dule, Rama said that Himara is an Albanian land, and as such, it must be treated like any other area of the country. Himara is the same as Tropoja, Kavaja, or any other area of Albania. The fact that it's inhabited by a Greek minority shows that it must integrate. Himara has been and is an Albanian region. Residents of Himara, Dermi, and Palasa speak Albanian, declared Rama. Mr. Dule's reaction was prompt. He said that the approval of the territorial reform threatens the rights of the Greek minority in Himara. Members of the Greek minority live in Himara, he said. You have clearly manifested what I denounced. Tendedishness. The rights of minority communities that are part of the Framework Convention are being threatened, said Dule. He also addressed a message to the Prime Minister. Those who make other parts of the institution life of a country must feel proud, and not those who pass laws, he said. Rama immediately reacted to this. He denied any possibility that the reform aims to strip the rights of the minorities. The Prime Minister also addressed an appeal to the head of the UHRP. Do not insult my intelligence, he said. There's not even a single attempt to restrict the liberties and rights of the Greek minority in Himara. We have recognized the presence of this minority there, and we will always respect it. The issue of Himara is a sensitive one, because it has to do with the 23 years of efforts by many of those who have wanted to see Himara as something which in fact it is not. We want the prosperity of the people, regardless of their ethnicity. The Democratic Party has expressed strong disagreement with the new territorial reform that was passed in Parliament yesterday. For the Democratic Party, the new division of the territory into 61 units which was voted for yesterday in the parliament, is unacceptable. They feel that it is a map with criminal interests. This map will never be accepted. Now the next word is up to the constitutional institutions, and the citizens will have the last word. They have the right to be asked, to express their opinions, and to decide the direct implementation of the Constitution, said Nurulzim Basha. The leader of the Democrats implied that the opposition expects the president to return this reform and to possibly file an appeal to the Constitutional Court. According to the Democratic Party, the whole process of the reform was a farce. Basha had more to say. They started taking the guise of cooperation with international partners, but quickly they removed the mask in question. They delivered calls for inclusiveness and consensus by openly challenging the international friends and partners with the lowest criminal bargains, where the underworld make the decisions in the parliament and hold the keys to the decisions. They started backwards and ended up at the same way. They started not by decentralization, but from the map, said Basha. He said that the Democratic Party supported and has called for the necessity of an administrative territorial reform. But he accused the leaders of the majority, Edi Rama and Ilir Mehta, of ignoring the demands of the opposition about the reform by excluding them from this process. The head of the New Democratic Spirit Party has expressed his support for the territorial reform, but he had some problems with the process. During the proceedings of the National Assembly of the New Democratic Spirit Party, or NDS, the president of the party stressed that the administrative territorial reform was necessary, but that there was a complete absence of the institutional opposition, and that it was without proper transparency. I launched the idea of a territorial reform in the opening of each session of each new legislature of the Assembly, when I was the head of state. I have made my appeal about the necessity of a territorial reform, which was passed yesterday, Topi said. According to him, the opinion of the NDS on this reform is far more valuable than the other parties, even though it is an extra-parliamentary party. Topi also added that the territorial reform went through changes during the discussions. It started with transparency and ended without transparency, leading it to different tendencies and interests. The utter lack of institutional opposition was a problem, Topi said. The head of this party criticized the boycott by the opposition, which, according to him, is being held hostage by only one man. Nurulzim Basha spoke today at the assembly elections of the Democratic Party, which were being held in Tirana. The chairman of the Democratic Party, Nurulzim Basha, participated in the assembly elections in branches 1, 2, and 11 of the capital. In his speech, Basha stressed that the Albanians are aware that the majority will not only fail to keep its promises, but will move increasingly further away from the representation of the vote on the 23rd of June. Basha said that they only received the votes through the help of the mafia, which now requires tribute. Today, he said, the mafia is in the parliament and even has the guts to threaten the opposition. Basha said, "Why did they not pass the laws on Thursday? Because some of them did not have time to be in the assembly, because they were eating cake at the birthday of Froku. The cake was delayed. What was the cake that was delayed? The disappearance of the witness from the Department of Witness Protection is a chilling scenario, reminiscent of the Black Mafia," said Basha. He went on, "The Democratic Party will respond to this serious and ominous reality with the best people elected to run the party through the free vote and the belief that this political force can awaken every citizen across the country. We have entered this road, and we will come out on top by consolidating the free vote and the responsibility of each member, and in turn, the respect of the contribution and merits of each one of us through evaluation by the membership. In this way, we will start a new practice, a practice that will be open and transparent, according to which no one will take less or more than he deserves, said Basha. The mayor of Tirana has published a report about the government's agreement with the Czech company CEZ. On behalf of the Democratic Party, the vice mayor of Tirana, Eno Bozdo, published an explanatory report on what the Democratic Party qualifies as the mega theft of the century, the government's agreement with the CEZ. In a conference at the headquarters of the Democratic Party, Mr. Bozdo said that the agreement with the CEZ is a financial crime, as the government is forgiving the CEZ an amount of $3 billion. Bozdo said that the opposition is determined to uncover every detail of the agreement, which, according to him, infringes the Albanian state and constitutes a crime. He made this comment: "The majority decided to wipe the legitimate rights of the Albanian state, to demand the $3 billion of damage caused to the state in a fair process of international arbitration. We call the responsible constitutional institutions to block this unprecedented act, this mega scandal. The Democratic Party will undertake all the necessary steps, first, to denounce this shameful deed, and secondly, to bring all those who incited and caused this colossal damage before justice," he said. Bozdo published a report that was compiled by an international company, which, according to him, provides irrefutable evidence of some missing investments by the CEZ. The report finds that the CEZ was invested a little more than 4% of what they should have invested to achieve the proper technical performance of the company, he said. The report says that CEZ invested only 52% of the investments approved by the ERE in distribution. In 2011, these investments fell to 37% and were reduced to only 7% in 2012. The strategic decision of the company to withdraw from Albania was made several years ago. He continued, "According to the documents, it is proven that in many cases the CEZ has falsified their investments in maintenance and repair cost. The report concludes that the technical performance was impossible to be achieved as long as the CEZ had abandoned the investments in the Albanian technical network in the last 2 years," said Bozdo. A Democratic MP has once again spoken out against the silence of Prime Minister Edi Rama since the conflict in Parliament. Edi Rama has been silent for 22 days, he said, demonstrating that responsiveness and accountability are not among his assets, said the Democratic Party MP Gerti Bogdani today in a media statement. Bogdani continued, saying that 22 days earlier, Edi Rama staged the physical striking and threatening of a deputy of the Democratic Party. He went on, "After this bandit-like act, which forced the opposition to leave the parliament, Edi Rama did not say a single word. He did not say a word when it was publicly confirmed that his instrument of violence is a representative of the underworld. The documents that were made public by the Democratic Party proved that Arben Ndoka was convicted of prostitution trafficking and kidnapping of people," said Bogdani. The investigations continue into the scandalous theft from the Central Bank of Albania, and more people are expected to be arrested. The scandal at the Bank of Albania is growing, as the prosecution is collaborating with the court and the police on a new wave of arrests. Last evening, 5 people were arrested, and a 6th one was declared wanted. They all stand accused of involvement in the heist that took place at the Bank of Albania. The prosecution of Tirana issued arrest warrants for several workers of the bank, supervisors and specialists, accusing them of abuse of their duty. Through their actions and omissions, they have enabled the theft of a significant amount of money from the premises of the Bank of Albania, said the prosecution. 5 people were arrested in the scandal, and a few days ago, the police arrested another 2 employees of the Bank of Albania, Ardian Bitrai and Mimoza Bruzia. This morning, the police also arrested Bashkim Gjilaga, the chief of cash and stock at the Bank of Albania. He had been previously declared wanted. Yesterday, the prosecution of Tirana signed the warrants for the employees of the central bank and the grandson of Ardian Bitrai, the person who took the money out of the vault. According to the prosecution, there are strong suspicions that the employees, with their actions and inactions, have abused their duty, giving assistance to Bitrai for 4 years, helping him to rob the state bank. In preparation for the construction of a new ring road, illegal buildings are being demolished in Tirana. The National Urban Construction Inspectorate continued its operations with the demolition of buildings in the area of Selita, where the new ring road of the capital will be constructed. The National Urban Construction Inspectorate has been developing this process in several stages. This Friday, 5 buildings were destroyed, and the inspectorate announced that it will continue its actions again on Monday, demolishing other buildings. In total, 300 constructions are expected to be demolished in this area, but the operation will be carried out in a series of steps. First, the properties will be expropriated, then the owners will be given monetary compensation, and then the buildings will be destroyed. The inspectorate expressed full commitment to continuing this process to pave the way for the building of the new ring road. The experts are saying that the political sides in Kosovo are both lacking strong arguments to back their cases. The post-election political coalition, consisting of LDK, AAK, and Incentive, has requested the Constitutional Court of Kosovo to turn down the demand of the PDK lawmakers. The PDK wants to consider the constitutionality of the election of the Speaker of Parliament as being unacceptable and unfounded. Through this request, the opposition wants to have an opportunity to outline its comments on the political crisis in a hearing before the Constitutional Court. According to the experts of legal issues, this demand is legitimate, but they are surprised at the poor arguments addressed to the Constitutional Court. According to them, given that the arguments are being presented so poorly, the Constitutional Court is in a very good position, because neither side is prepared to stand its ground. Fisnik Koranica, from the Group for Political and Legal Studies, says that in principle, the argument about who is the biggest parliamentary group favors the opposition. But if the quality of the arguments being made is examined, it can be seen that they are of the same quality as the Democratic Party. In general, I have my doubts that the political parties in Kosovo are able to request this of the Constitution, since they don't have the basic arguments on which to build a case, said Koranica. Meanwhile, the expert of legal issues, Mazlum Baraliu, thinks that the claims of the opposition coalition are not legitimate. According to him, the final ruling of the Constitutional Court depends on the proof. I believe that the ruling must be balanced, he said. It must be in compliance with the constitutional norms, and the Constitution must be interpreted, rather than having a rewrite of the Constitution through a ruling of the court, says Baraliu. Another protest was held today in Skopje against the sentencing of 6 Albanians in the case of 2012. Hundreds of Albanians protested today in Skopje, seeking the release of 6 Albanians sentenced for the murder of 5 Macedonians in April of 2012 in the suburbs of Skopje. The protesters marched the streets of Skopje, but they were not allowed anywhere near the courts or the government buildings. Extra police forces stood a few meters away from the protesters in the area known as Bit Pazar, which is mainly populated by Albanians. The protesters did not even read their demands, but they warned that they would do this in a press conference, which will be held by the families of the sentenced Albanians. The legal counsel for the protests demanded that Albanian political parties and MPs should join this protest, but this call was not effective because the protest did not have any political figures in participation. The protesters demanded the release of the 6 Albanians, and they demand the resignation of the Macedonian judges and prosecutors who gave the sentences. Meanwhile, another protest was held today in Skopje by the teachers and academic staff of the Education, Culture, and Scientific Union. The head of this union, Jakim Nedeljkov, said that their protest is being held to get better payments for workers in education, culture, and science, better working conditions, and new investments. He said that state institutions had put pressure on many workers not to participate in these protests. This has been the Ora News English edition. Thank you for watching. Please join us again tomorrow at 6 p.m. for more Albanian news in English. Thank you and good night.